All right. Hi guys. Good evening. Hopefully you're able to see the screen, see me, and also hear me properly. If yes, just send a hi, good evening, something in the chat so that I know the setup is fine and we can then get started. Perfect. Great. I hope everybody is doing good. And again, as always, I have YouTube chat open on the side and I also have Zoom chat open as well. So no matter where you are joining from, I have that covered. So you can ask questions in whichever chat and I should be able to help, right? Great. So again, so far we've been talking about CSS. We have started talking about CSS rather in the previous session. And in this one, we'll continue that discussion. So remember, I told you that there will be 3 sessions on CSS. We've had the first session already, right? This is the second session and we'll have one more session on Wednesday, which is where, we'll basically finish off with CSS and then move to JavaScript from Friday, right? Great. Coming to this particular session, or rather, before we jump into this particular session, there are 2 quick updates. Again, update number 1, the assignment for HTML. Listen very carefully. The assignment for HTML has been uploaded on TapTap, which is the LMS, right? So please check that out and do the submission accordingly. You have to submit or, basically upload an HTML file, which will contain all the answers to those questions. So there are 6 to 7 questions, right? Wherein you have to just make an HTML file, solve them in that HTML file and submit that. Okay. So again, that has to be done on TapTap, which is the LMS. I will repeat, the assignment for HTML has been uploaded on TapTap. Please log into your accounts, go to the assignment, check that assignment out. There are 6 to 7 questions in that assignment on HTML, and it will be everything that we have covered, right? All the way from simple heading tags to forms. There will be everything in that assignment. You will have to work on that. There could be some tags which you might have to find out on your own, right? So again, you can refer to W3 Schools, you can refer to MDN, you can refer to Google and find those things out. It is not, of course, limited to you doing it by recalling the tags or remembering the tags. You can use all the resources that you want and do it, because anyway it is all custom screenshots, so you will not find the exact code anywhere on the internet. They are from my own projects and I have made custom projects, right? So you will not find ready-made code anywhere. You will have to do it manually itself. So that is the update on the assignment. We'll probably give you about 2 weeks for this. So before next, like before the end of the month or so, today is the 10th, right? 12th. So you can take 2 weeks or so for the assignment and submit it accordingly. Again, once we finish CSS, there will be a CSS assignment given. Again, once we do JavaScript, we'll give you a JavaScript assignment, right? Is that clear? Any further questions on assignment? If you have anything, let me know in the chat. Any questions on assignment? It is uploaded on the LMS. Go ahead. There are 6 to 7 questions. Create an HTML file, get the outputs done and submit that. It's very simple, nothing complicated at all. Is that clear? Yes, no? Okay, hold on. Let me enable the chat. Yes, you should now be able to respond in the chat. So yes, okay, perfect, done. So again, just log into the LMS. You should be able to find the assignment. I think the assignment link has also been sent on email, which will direct you taken to that part of the LMS. So you can just access that via email as well. Great. The second update is again regarding the repository. Again, the link is on the screen. This is where everything is available. So I've uploaded everything till the previous session over here, right? All the code snippets, all the recorded links of all the sessions, as well as the PPTs. Everything that we have used in the session has been uploaded to this repository. Again, please make sure you check that out and you will find, all the content regarding everything over here. So everything is in one place. You can find it over here. Again, when we finish today's session, I will update the same repository with more material from this session. So this is where you can go and check that out. Perfect. Now coming to what we have covered so far, right? Or before that, I think let's do the same round of questions that we do all the time. So here is the first question for you. Now this is a little more technical. So again, I will give you 2 minutes to think about this. If you are from a programming background, CSE, IT, you might have seen this question before, but anyway, doesn't really matter, right? So the question is on the screen. I will give you 2 minutes to think about this, and you can then put your answers in the chat. The question is, how do you swap the values of two variables without using a third variable? right? So we don't want to use a third variable, and we're not talking about Python, right? So for people who are saying a comma b equal to b comma a, that is a Python thing. We are not talking about any specific language. We want to do it generally using mathematics. So no programming shortcuts, no built-in methods, right? None of that is going to work. We are looking at a custom mathematical solution, right? So yes, I'll give you a minute. Think about this, and then you can put it in the chat. Let's discuss that and then continue. Right. So the correct answer, again, a lot of you have replied in the chat. So the correct answer is something like this. I will just show it to you on the screen itself so that everybody can see this. So the first step is to say A is equal to A plus B. This is the first step. So A is equal to A plus B, right? Then the next step is we say B is equal to A minus B. So B is equal to A minus B. And then the third step is A is equal to A minus B, right? So that's the third step. So A is equal to A, sorry for the handwriting. Actually, this is really difficult to write on. But yes, so this is the correct solution. Let's take a quick example. So let us say that we have A is equal to 10, right? And B is equal to 20. So if this is these are the values that we have, then in first step, A is equal to A plus B. So in that step, A will become 30, right? So A will become 30. A is equal to A plus B. So that's 30. Then B is equal to A minus B. So B is now 20. So 30 minus 20 will be 10. So the value of A was 10, but now the value of B is 10. And then we say A is equal to A minus B. So again, A is 30, and 30 minus 10 will be 20, right? So this is how we can basically get the swapping done. As you can see now, the values are swapped, right? So earlier A was 10, B was 20. Now A is 20 and B is 10, right? So this is how we can perform the swap of values. Again, most of you did respond with the correct answer. So that is great. Well done. For people who could not, this is how you do it. Right? So remember the next time, this is a very, very famous or a very common interview question, right? So remember this logic, right? Perfect. Let's move to the next part. Next question, that is, here we go. So again, this is a very rather, a very simple one. So I'll give you a minute to think about this and you can then put it in the chat and then we'll discuss the correct answer. Okay, perfect. So the correct answer to this one, very simple. It is joke, right? Joke is the correct answer. So a joke can be cracked, made, told, and played. So yes, joke is the correct answer. Like I said, it's a very simple one. Here is the next one. Again, this is a little more technical. And yes, you can give it a thought and then share your answer in the chat. So the question is subtract two numbers without using the subtraction operator, right? So again, this is a challenge for you. Think and put your answers in the chat. I'll give you 2 minutes and then we'll discuss the correct answer. Okay, so yes, there are a couple of answers in the chat and there are a few right. Again, so this is a question wherein you might not have the right answer at all. Right? This is one of those questions wherein we might not have the right answer, right? So the acceptable answer rather is A plus minus B, right? So I think that is what most of you are also putting in the chat. So again, the acceptable answer would be, um, let me just type it down. So the acceptable answer would be A plus minus B. This would be acceptable. But again, the point is over here also, we are still using the minus operator. So to negate the value or to make it negative, we are still using the subtraction operator. So technically speaking, this might not be accurate. But yes, this is the only acceptable answer. Other than this, there is no answer, right? So this is the only one that is acceptable. And yes, so you could also argue that this is not possible and it cannot be done. And you might be true when you say that, right? So perfect. Those were the three questions for today. Now coming to a quick flashback of what we have done so far. So in the previous session, we were talking about HTML classes and IDs. So we have seen these two attributes. Again, if you remember, class is what we use when we want to group or style multiple elements together. On the other hand, ID is what we use when we want to point out to a single element on the screen. So multiple elements can have the same class, versus individual elements can have unique IDs. So there cannot be more than one ID, one same ID on the same page, right? And then classes can be repeated. So this is what we've discussed in the previous one. Now, um, the next thing that we talked about in the previous session was how do we add CSS to HTML. So we talked about three different ways of adding CSS: external CSS, internal CSS, and inline CSS. So again, I told you that external CSS is what we use 90% of the times, right? Then internal CSS is what we use 7-8% of the times. And then inline CSS is used 2% of the times. So imagine a project where we have 10-15 different pages. So first up, we start with the external CSS. All pages link to the same CSS file. So we add the external CSS with the link tag, right? We specify link relation equal to style sheet, and then href equal to CSS file location, right? So all the pages link to this CSS file. So all the common styles, all the general styles get applied. Then out of those 10 pages, let us say 2 to 3 pages might require some additional styling that is done with internal CSS. And then within a page, if we have a very specific style to be made, right, or a specific style to be written, that is inline. We use it very rarely, unless you don't have any other choice and there is no way you can do it with external or internal, then you could go for inline. So again, that's a very, very rare use case. We use it very, very rarely. So these are the three different ways of adding CSS, right? Hopefully, it makes sense. Hopefully, you remember how we added them. So external CSS was added with the link tag, internal CSS was added with the style tag, and then inline CSS was added with the style attribute. So those were the three ways in which we have discussed this. Perfect. Then we talked about different CSS selectors, right? So we started the discussion with the universal selector, which will select everything on the page. Then we have element selectors, right, which are HTML tag names themselves, which will select all instances of that tag on the screen. Then we have class selectors. So this is where we can select multiple elements by giving them a common class. Then we have ID selector. So ID is unique to an element. So that way we are targeting a specific element on the page. Then we have grouping of selectors. So multiple selectors, no matter which category they belong to, element, class, or ID, can be grouped together to apply common styles, right? Again, if a single element has multiple selectors, for example, it is possible that the same element can have a class selector, an ID selector, and also element selector. All the common stylings will be applied, but the ID selector will get preference. So if you change background color in all three cases, the ID color will be given preference, followed by the class color, followed by the element color. Similarly, in this case, inline CSS will be given preference over internal, and that will be given preference over external CSS. So this is what we have discussed already, right? Now, we've also talked about this. So setting text and background color, very simple. These are the properties, color and background hyphen color. We have also talked about background sizes. We have also talked about a background position, repetition. All of those things have been discussed. And then we've also talked about background images, right? So this is everything that we have discussed already. Right now, coming to today's agenda. So the first thing that we are starting off with today is font and text styling, and then we'll move to a couple of other concepts. So at this point, again, I'm going to go ahead and share my code or share the screen with the code, and then we'll start writing the code. So here is the code again. This is what we made in the last session. So I have that open already, but let me just get rid of that so that we can start fresh. So I will just comment everything out for now that we don't really need. So done. Again, this code is available on the GitHub repository. In case you want that code, please go ahead and find it over there. Now I'm going to go ahead and modify that. And what we want to start off with today are text styles. So let me just make some space over here so that we can focus on the styles. Perfect. So I'll just add a couple of quick text things on the page so that we can work with it. So let's say let's put a more realistic heading. Let's say best, shoes in the world, for example. This is the title that we have on the page, right? There we go. And then let's put H3. handmade with the best materials. And this is the next line. I will just zoom in so that we can see the output a little better. And then we could have a paragraph with some dummy text, which is lorem ipsum. And let me enable word wrap as well. Done. So this is the text that we have on the screen. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and style it. So the first question for you is, at this point of time, which selector do you think we should be working with? So do we use the ID selector, class selector, universal selector? What exactly do we select? We want to style them individually. Right? We want to style heading differently, paragraph differently. So which of the selector should we use in this case? Perfect. So most of you are saying ID, and ID is exactly correct, right? Because we want to style them individually. So what we can do is we can give all of them IDs, right? So we can say H1 ID equal to heading, or let's call it main heading, right? So we can have something like this, right? Main heading. Then similarly for H3, we can give another ID called subheading, for instance. And then for paragraph, we can give ID of content or description. You can choose whatever you want to call it, but this makes sense. So we have now given IDs to all three. Now let us go ahead and put up our CSS. So again, we have CSS already written over here. Let me comment this out. The file is already connected to HTML because we have the link tag already in place. So we don't have to connect again, it's already connected. Now let's write some styles. So the first few things that we are going to focus on are text styles. So we'll take a look at how to underline text, how to italicize it, how to change the font, how to add a custom font from the internet. That is what we'll talk about first. So changing the font, size of the font, etc., etc. All of that is what we'll focus on, right? So let's start with the heading. So the selector is, again, the question for you is, how do we select that ID? What CSS should I write, or which selector should I write to select our heading? This main heading is what we want to select, right? We have hash. Perfect. So you guys have understood this really well. So we have main heading with the hash. Perfect. This is done. Now, uh, pay close attention here. I'm going to show you a couple of properties really quickly, right, so that we understand how things work. The first thing that we have is font size, right? So this is basically the way to increase or decrease the font size on the screen. So again, let me make some space for the output. And let us say that we put in 40 pixels, right? So again, if I refresh, you will see the size increases a little bit. Let me go a little, let me increase it further. So you can see this is now much bigger, right? If I just comment this out, this is the default size of H1. What we can do is we can set it like this. So again, 64 pixels would basically mean we are increasing the font size to 64. We'll talk about the different units in just a minute. So I'll show you all the different ways of creating a font like of the unit in a few minutes. Then the second thing that we have is, how do you underline this, right? So for this, we have text decoration. And text decoration has a couple of values, as you can see. So if you go for wavy, then you will see, okay, this does not work over here. Let me go for underline. So this is how you can underline it, as you can see. So we have text decoration and the value is underline. Similarly, we have also something called overline. So this is where the line shows up on top. We also have something called strike. Um, Right? We have something called line through. You can see this is that cutoff thing. So again, this is how we can style this in CSS, right? So remember, HTML is only used to add content to the page. We try to not style it at all. We just add content using HTML. All the styling must be done in CSS. It's a very important programming concept. We call it separation of concerns, right? So the term is separation of concerns. Again, like the meaning of this term, we try to keep specific files to specific tasks. The role of the HTML file is only to add content to the screen. The role of the HTML file is not to add styles. That is the role of CSS. right? So CSS code is only concerned with adding styles to the output. It is not concerned with adding content generally. So again, HTML is for content, CSS is for styling. There is a very clear-cut distinction between the two. So this is how we can do the decoration. Again, you can choose between a couple of options. We also have dotted and dashed, which don't work in this case. They work for divs and other pieces. But we have underline, overline, line through those three things. Then let us say that you want to make this all uppercase or something like that. So for that, we have something called text transform. And we have a couple of options. First up, we have lowercase. So this will convert everything lowercase. The entire line will become lowercase. Similarly, uppercase will make everything uppercase, as you can see. Then we have capitalize. So capitalize will basically make the first character of every word capital, as you can see, right? Best shoes in the world. So the first character of every word becomes capital. That is the capitalize transformation, right? So again, depending on what you want to work with, you can choose between these options. We have lowercase, uppercase, and capitalize. And then we can set it to none to go back to default. So default as in whatever is written in HTML. And if you write it like this, then it will show up like this. Basically, if you have your first characters capital, they will show up capital. But if you want to custom control them using CSS, then this is how you can do it. Uppercase, lowercase, capitalize, and none. These are the values for text transformation. Then the next bit is color. So again, we can just say COLOR and we can put whatever color we want, right? So very simple. Let me put a darker shade actually. So let's go for something like this. And that brings us to color modes. So today I want to also talk about three different color modes that we generally use. There are 6 modes that CSS supports, but we don't use the other 3 modes as much as these three. So I'll focus on that. There are multiple modes available, but we'll focus on a couple of them. So there are 3 modes. The first is literally this, which is where we directly specify the color, right? So this is the first mode that CSS supports. So that is the first one. And yes, like most of you are saying, we have the next mode, which is called RGB, and the third mode is called hex color code. Again, these are industry design codes. So if you talk to a designer like a graphic artist, they will relate to these terms. They will understand what you mean by RGB. They will understand what you mean by hex code and so on. Right. So there are 3 modes. Again, the normal color names, but again, there are limited color names, right? There are like 20, 30 color names available, which are very limited. Now, what we can do is we can go ahead and focus on the next part. So the next mode is RGB. To use RGB color, we say RGB like this, and then we can specify the red, green, and blue values. So again, if you go back to school, remember we were taught that red, green, and blue are primary colors. Right? Red, green, and blue are primary colors, and whatever color you want can be made up using these colors. That is exactly how RGB and hex modes work. We have to specify what amount of red, what amount of green, and what amount of blue we want to mix. That's the idea, right? So again, the values for these are between 0 and 255. As you can see here, it says 255, 0 and 0. So the first color is red. The first value is for red. The second value is for green. The third value is for blue. Okay, let me do this. So for people who are asking for assignment for attendance links in the chat, again, if you have been attending sessions previously, you would know that I do not have attendance link. You have to click on the email or WhatsApp links to get your attendance. So please stop asking for attendance links in the chat. Again, if you have attended any session so far, you would know how attendance works. So again, requesting you to not put those messages. I am looking at the chat for genuine questions, and all I am seeing is attendance link, attendance link, attendance link. So again, if you want attendance link, please go to your email and check that email over there. Right? Perfect. Coming back to the point, so we were on RGB, right? And again, so like I said, the values range between 0 and 255. So we can specify the values like this. And yes, there is a way to control the amount of color also. I'll show that to you in just a minute, right? So again, for red, green, and blue, we have 0 to 255. So let's put something like 120 for red, right? Then again, let's say, 240 for green, for instance. I don't know which color this will be, but let's see. And 30 for blue. So you can see this gives us green color. Right? So this is the RGB color mode. Another way to use RGB or literally any color is using the color picker that VS Code provides us. So if you're using Visual Studio Code, right, to pick a color, you will see this box, right, which shows up before the color code here. So what you can do is just hover over that box, and this will give you access to any color that you want. You can use this to pick literally any color in whatever shade you want. So if you want dark purple, just choose that, and you can see, right, that this is how it will show up. So again, very simple. You just hover over it. It will give you this box, and you can pick whichever color by dragging it over here. You can choose whichever color you want. And that way it will automatically generate the RGB for us, right? We don't really need any Chrome extension, honestly, because this is enough. This gives us access to every single color that we would ever need, right? So this is actually more than enough. But yes, Google Chrome will have a couple of extensions if you're looking for it. One of them is called iDrop, something like that, iDrop tool. So you can basically check that out. That is the RGB. Then the third color mode that we have available is hex. So again, hex is a color mode which is where we use hexadecimal values. So this is hash RRGGBB, right? So if you know hexadecimal, or rather how hexadecimal works is, we have the values from 0 to 9 and then A to F. Right? So in total, we have 16 values. It's 16 values, 0 to 9 and A to F. This is hexadecimal, hexa for 16. And again, decimal is a number system. So we have 0 to 9 and then A to F. So we can use these to specify the amount of, again, red, green, and blue. That makes it hexadecimal, right? So for instance, if we go for something like 33AA66, this would mean 33 for A, 33 for red, AA for green, and 66 for blue. It could also be different. For example, 30 for this AF, for this, and 61 for, red, green, and blue. So again, this is the color that shows up. Again, you can click on this and choose whatever color you want, and VS Code will generate the hexadecimal for you, as you can see. So this is very handy when we use VS Code. These are the kind of things that it is actually really good at. So you can see again, if you do the same thing for RGB, you get the RGB value. If I choose this color instead, you will see it gives us the RGB shades. If I do the same thing for hexadecimal, it will automatically give me the hexadecimal shade. Right? So VS Code is really good at helping us out with these extensions. So yes, that is the idea. Now, as you can see, these are the three different color modes that we have discussed. The normal color, which is the text name, then the RGB color mode, and then the hexadecimal color mode. Right? These are the three different color codes. Again, we have to give the amount of red, green, blue. In the same way, in hexadecimal also, we have to give the amount of red, green, and blue. Most probably you will see hex code being used over RGB and normal color names. 99% of the cases you will see hex code being used on websites. In some cases you will see RGB. Standard color names will never be used. So we have to choose between RGB and hex. I prefer hex, but you could also go for RGB, no problem. Then there is one more thing which gives us access to the depth of the color, right? So the this is called the alpha value, right? We call it alpha value. So alpha value basically is the amount of intensity of the color, right? So if I put RGB, for example, if this is the color, this is the purple color, as you can see, dark purple, right? So what we can do is we can add A to it. So this becomes RGBA, and then the alpha value can be between 0 and 1. So if I say 0.5, for instance, you will see this becomes a little dim. That is how you can color style the intensity of the color. So this is purple, but it is dim, right? So this is the idea. Okay. Again, you can use the same setup here also. So we can provide the intensity at the end, right? For example, this becomes, again, you can see the same setup in hexadecimal. It can range from 0 to F. So just like we have red, green, and blue values, we can give the value for intensity as well. If we give FF, it is fully visible. And if we give 0, 0, it is hidden, right? So again, that is the setup for hexadecimal. So this is called alpha value. This is also called opacity. Yes, like Janvi said in the chat, this is also called opacity, right? So this is how we work with colors in CSS. These are the three different color modes. Other reason as to why there are three modes is simply because they were made by different people, right? So some people thought this would be enough, but then they realized that you can only have handful of colors that way. So then they came up with RGB, and some other person came up with hexadecimal. So the language supports all modes. You can choose any one. So in a typical project, we will either use RGB entirely or we will either use hex entirely. We'll not use a combination like this. We will pick one of these modes and use that in its entirety, right? So this is how we can work with colors. I've shown you everything you need to know for colors, right? So let me make it a little more darker, right? Done. So this is everything to do with colors. And yes, these are the basic text styles again, right? So again, here you have font size, you have text decoration, text transform, and finally we have to talk about font family. So again, the style is font hyphen family, and then we can give in whatever family we want, right? So let's go for Times New Roman, for instance. So this is a font which comes pre-installed in all systems. And as soon as I do this, you will not see a lot of changes because I think the default font itself is Times New Roman. But yes, as soon as I choose the Courier font, you will see the value changing, right? So this again, there are different fonts available. Some of them are in the system, some of them we can get from the internet. Now, let me show you how you can add a font from the internet, right? So we have a website called Google Fonts. Let's check that out. So the website is fonts.google.com, right? Fonts.google.com. Over here, you will find hundreds of free fonts. Hundreds of free fonts. Let's choose this one just so that it appears unique, right? So the font is called Honk, Honk, right? And the way to use it is to get this font directly in CSS. So we don't have to download this font or any of that. All we need to do is we need to select the style. So you can see the selection button over here. You can see select, right? So we just have to click on that select button. And what that will do is it will add the font to our selection. So let me just click on that button. And you will see now that it pulls up this pop-up window from the side. And it has now selected this font for us. At the bottom, you will see you get a link tag. This is what we need to copy, right? So just like we have our normal CSS link tag, we can now put this link tag in our HTML, right? So this link tag, which we have received from Google Font, there will be three link tags. You just have to copy and paste it. Then you will also get the font family written over here, which is HONK honk. You can just copy that and put it in your CSS code. So if I just go back, I will just put that over here. So HONK. Perfect. Now what we can do is that's it. So if we go ahead and check it out, it should now show us that font on our page. So if I just go back to the page, you will see this font is now applicable in our page, right? So this is how we can add a custom font. Let me quickly tell you this once again, right? So again, pay very close attention. The first step is to go to Google Fonts. So the website is fonts.google.com. Over here, we can choose whichever font we want, right? So there are so many options that are available. The link is fonts.google.com. So you can choose whichever font you want, right? For example, I chose that one font, but you can choose whichever font you want, right? Once you've selected a font, for example, this one, what you need to do is you need to scroll down to find styles. So you'll see over here, we have regular 400, right? This regular 400. So this style can be selected by clicking on this button, select regular 400. Once you select this, you will see it pulls up a right-hand side pop out, and this gives us access to the link. The code is ready-made. It's written over here. What we need to do is just copy this and paste it like a normal link in HTML. So here again, just like we have the CSS link, we can just paste these links over here. Then the last thing is to use font family and specify that font. So again, we just then go ahead and get that. Okay, done. So that is how we can get a custom font. If you want to do this without linking to Google, if you want the font to be available in your system, then you have to click on download family. This will give you a TTF file. So this will give you a zip file, which will contain a TTF file, which is the font file, right? So you then have to install that font on your system. And that way you will be able to use that font without connecting to Google or without using any of those links, right? So again, typically it is not recommended because usually when somebody else will open your website, then that would mean that they would also need that font in their system, which is wrong expectations. So it is better if we connect to Google. That way, whoever is opening our website will be able to get that font from Google. So if that link is included in our code, then no matter what device you open this on, whoever connects to your website, their device will go to Google and fetch that font. So this approach is recommended. You should directly use online fonts like this. Instead of trying to use custom fonts from the system, it is recommended that you use online fonts as well, online fonts itself. Right? Perfect. So this is how we can add custom fonts onto our page. And then again, this is pretty much everything you need to know about text styles for now, right? So if you go back to the slide here, we have discussed most of these things. We have discussed how to underline text. We have discussed how to change font. We have also discussed how to work with uppercase, lowercase. All of those things have been discussed. Now let's take questions on this. So if you guys have any doubts or questions so far, please let me know and I will answer them one by one. So let me just start going to the questions one by one. I'm seeing a couple of questions in the chat. Let me take a few of them. Can we have different colors for font? Yes. So again, Murthy, we have discussed this, right? We can use a span tag to individually select a piece of text and we can style that tag instead. So that way you can add custom colors, custom fonts in whatever way you want. You can use span to select whichever portions of text you want and style them that way. Yes. So again, Vema Koti, right? Whatever styles we're discussing, these are applicable to any text on the page, not just your heading, but every tag, right? Whatever it is, you can apply the same to any piece of text. It could be TD, it could be list item, it could be any other tag. As long as it is a text tag, all of these styles are applicable. Alpha values. Sure. So basically, alpha values allow us to control the intensity of the color, right? So we also call this opacity. Opacity is the amount of visibility of the color. It ranges between 0 to 1. 0 means it is fully blank or not visible, and then 1 means it is fully visible. We call it fully opaque. So for example, if I put 0 over here, you will see the text is hidden. So this is the alpha value or the opacity value. Right? The maximum is FF in hexadecimal. So when I put FF, this is fully visible now. If I put something in between, like 8, for example, you will see it is 50% visibility. It is not fully visible, not fully transparent, somewhere in middle. So you can control exactly what you want or exactly how much you want the text to be visible in this way using the alpha value. The same is applicable for RGB as well. Here we range the value between 0 to 1. So you can have something like 0.123 as well, custom control like that, right? So we can choose this depending on however much visibility we want to set. It can range from 0, which is hidden, to 1, which is fully visible, right? So yes, I think these were all the standard questions that were there in the chat for now. And then let's move to the next one. Yes, so again, Ashweta, the font size that we are adding is applicable to whatever font you have, even if it is from your system or Google. You can say if I remove the font size, it is smaller. So we are actually increasing the font size to a Google font itself. So yes, we can add that. There is no HTML code here. I have just written H1. So that's the only HTML code we have. And then of course, this has been copied from Google. Yes, so we will get 3D and all of that later. We'll talk about that later. For now, we're just talking about first of basic CSS. And yes, so you can do a watermark, right? You can put a background image to the entire body and reduce its intensity. So that way it will look like a watermark. Again, Rohit, I have been telling you so many times that I cannot give you the attendance link. It will come on your email as a join session email. So you will get a session reminder email. When you click on join, your attendance will automatically be taken. You'll also get a feedback link at the end of the session. Please fill that feedback form and that will also take you to the attendance part. I don't have the link, sorry, so I cannot send it to you. So please stop putting attendance link in the chat. This is for everybody. I will not repeat this again. Right? So whoever is asking for attendance links, I cannot help you with that. You will get an email session reminder. Click on that. It will automatically update your attendance. There is no link that I can give you which will add attendance for you. Right? I hope that makes sense. Perfect. Now let's move to the next major concept for today. So after discussing fonts, we are now talking about something called the box model, right? So the box model is basically something that will be used, right, to arrange things on the page. There is one more question regarding some JavaScript thing. So no, just one, I'm pretty sure I've made the assignment myself. There is no need for JavaScript in those questions. I have made it myself. It is an HTML only assignment. If you think JavaScript is needed for some part, please skip that question. You do not need JavaScript for the assignment, just HTML. You don't even need CSS for that assignment. It is only HTML, right? So yes, that is what I wanted to quickly address. So before people get confused, you don't need anything that we have not discussed for the assignment. Everything has already been discussed. Right? If you think there is a particular question which is a problem, please let me know. So I will help you with that. But again, there are no JavaScript or CSS questions in that assignment. We'll give you more assignments later, right? Again, we will talk about React and all the other concepts later. But for now, we are only focusing on HTML questions in the assignment. Great. Now coming to the box model. So the box model looks literally like what we see on the screen, right? Yes, so he must say, I'm reading YouTube chat only. The assignment question came from YouTube itself. So yes, I am reading both the chats. Just want to ask this on YouTube itself. And yes, so again, people are asking where can they find recorded sessions? Again, I have shared the repository link with you 100 times. That repository link is where you have all the recordings as well. Let me actually show that to you quickly. So let me just open that 1 second. Here we go, and there. So this is the repository where everything is. Again, hopefully you can see this on the screen now. This is where the session recordings are. I have put everything in one place. All the code from the session, the PPT from the session, everything is available in this repository, including the recording links, right? So for people who are still confused as to where there are recordings and whether there are recordings or not, this is where everything is. Again, I am putting the link in the chat. Please copy this and keep it with you. The assignment is on tap. So that's on the LMS. That is not on this link. You will not find the assignment here. Again, please make sure for the assignment you visit tab. Right? That's where you have to submit it as well. I have also pasted the link in YouTube chat. So in both the chats, I have now pasted the link multiple times. Please get it from there and you can refer to it. Done. Now coming back to the box model. So this is what we use in CSS to arrange content on the screen. It is very important because this is the fundamental of moving things around on the screen in CSS. Right? So this is how we arrange stuff on the screen. Again, the image on the screen literally explains what the box model is. So there are a couple of different components to the box model. The first component is the content itself. This could be a text or an image or any other media item that we add. Basically, any HTML content that we add on the screen is called the content, right? Now, there is some space between the content and its border. So this space is called the padding in CSS. Outside the border, you have margin. This is the space between two different elements on the screen. Let me show this to you in the browser itself. So one of the reasons why I asked all of you to install Google Chrome or use Chrome for development is because Google Chrome provides us with some really amazing developer tools. These tools give us access to things like looking at the box model and understanding how it works. So for example, what you have to do is right click and click on the inspect button. Once you click on the inspect button, it will pull up this entire menu, which is called the developer tools, right? So these are all the developer tools that we can see on the screen. Now, if you focus on this part on the bottom right hand side and I scroll down all the way, you can see this. This is literally the box model that is visible to us in Google Chrome, right? So again, what you have to do is right click and click on inspect. You can also go to the three dots and then go to advanced and then go to developer tools. So more tools and then developer tools, or just right click and inspect, right? Then you can choose any element on the screen using this arrow. So choose any one thing, for example, and scroll down. This will give us access to the box model right here in Google Chrome. So as you can see, on the bottom right over here, we can see the box. This is basically the CSS box model. This is how things work. This is where we can see rather how it works. So let me show you how this actually works, right? There are four properties to the box model. The first property is the content itself, right? So this best shoes in the world, whatever content we have in our heading, right, which is our HTML stuff, this part, best shoes in the world, this is the content. Now, in addition to this content, we have padding, border, and margin. We have padding, we have border, and we have margin. These are three additional things that are applicable to this content. This is applicable to every single HTML tag, be it a table, a list, a form, an image, whatever it is that we have discussed with HTML. The box model is applicable to every single tag, right? Let me add those and show you how this works. So I will go to H3 this time. This is subheading, right? And the first thing that we want to add over here is a padding. So for now, there is no style applied to the subheading. As you can see, if I click on this arrow, right? So this arrow is here on the top. You can see this arrow, right? I'm just highlighting it as well. This arrow is called selector. So if we just use this, we can select any element on the screen. So I will click on this. It will give us access to a pointer and we can point to this element. So this will get updated. As of now, you will see there is no style to the element. This is blank, right? So again, you can see the element styles on the bottom right over here. You can see element styles, class styles, everything that we have added over there. So as of now, there are no styles for the element. You can see element.style is empty and also the subheading is empty. Let us go ahead and add a padding. So padding is again PADDING and we can specify the value like this. Pay very close attention to what happens to the output now. So let me actually use the size of the code and I will just increase the size of the output for just a minute so that we can focus on what is going on over there. Perfect. So now the output is a little better visible. If I just refresh now, you will see that this much space has been created. This green space has been created. This is the padding. Again, this is the space between the content and the border of the element. That is called padding. So all the text styles that we have applied over here, these are all content styles. They are applied to the actual content itself. Padding is a box model style. This applies to the entire block. So how this works is CSS treats every single HTML element as a box, right? CSS treats every single HTML element as a box. So whatever style we apply, these styles, they are applicable to the entire box. This is the padding, right? Again, there are different ways to specify this. If you only want space on the right hand side, for example, you don't want this left space, so you can only specify padding hyphen right. So this will only add padding on the right hand side. You can only specify padding at the bottom or padding at the top. So we specify it like this and we can have multiple paddings as well. You can say padding top and padding left. So there'll be no padding on the right and the bottom, for example, right? So we can do stuff like that. We have custom control over this. When we say padding 50 pixels, it means padding on all four sides. The next concept is a border. So again, we can say border. And then for the border, we have to specify three things. We have to specify how thick the border should be. We have to specify the style of the border and then the color of the border. So for example, I can say 5 pixel solid red. So you will see a 5 pixel solid red border shows up on the screen. This is the boundary of our box. This is the boundary of our element. Right? If I again scroll down and select the padding from here, you will see the box model on the bottom right is now updated as well. It is showing us that the border value is 5 and the padding value is 50. So whatever we have written in the code is reflecting live in the box model in the developer tools. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people prefer CSS for development. These tools that CSS provides are really good. These tools that Google Chrome provides are really good for developers. So this is how that works. Again, you can see it also highlights it for us. So margin is this space outside the element. You can see the orange part on the screen. Then border is this current selection, which is the red part. And then padding is this green part on the screen, right? So this is the box model. We have the content, we have the padding, border, and margin. Now, margin is not something that we have specified over here. Then how does the page, how does the heading still have a margin? Well, there are some HTML elements that have a default margin. For example, body also has some default margin, and headings, paragraphs, all other elements or most other elements also have a default margin. But of course, we can manipulate that. If you want to change it, you can set margin to 50 pixels like this. And you will now see that it moves away as well. So if I highlight the margin now, margin is the space between two elements, right? So you can see this orange space between H1 and H3, between H3 and P. This is the margin. Then this is the border, this is the padding. And then of course, this is the content. So again, content, padding, border, margin. This is the box model: content, padding, border, margin. These four things are applicable to a box model. And this is how we can space things around on the screen, right? So if you want to center something, or rather not center, we'll talk about centering later. But if you want to space things around, let's say things are too cramped, you want to create some space, all of that is done with the help of the box model. This is how it looks. So again, we can specify individual values. You can specify padding left, right, top, bottom, margin left, right, top, bottom. They can have different values as well. And for border also, you can specify everything individually. If you want border left to be different, you can say border left. Let's say you want the left border to be different. So you can style it like this. You can say 5 pixel dash pink. So you will see that only the left border is now different. As you can see, this is pink and dashed, right? So similarly, if you want any other style border to be different, you can just write it this way. Border, let's say bottom, we want it to be dotted. So there is dotted border also available. You can change the size, let's say 7 pixels. And we want this to be yellow, for example. So again, you will see a yellow dotted border shows up at the bottom, right? So again, we have custom control over everything. Whatever style you want to do with HTML and CSS, you can do it. Right? You have custom control over everything. If you want margin bottom to be different, you can change that. Let's make it 200 pixels. So the paragraph will push way to the bottom, like you can see. Right? So now if you check the margin, it is 50 pixels on all three sides. At the bottom, it is 200 because we have specified it that way. So this is the box model. Again, it's a very important concept. We'll use this every time. Whenever we style anything, we are going to use this box model, right? So this is how the box model works in CSS. Again, we have the content, we have padding, border, and margin. This is how this works, right? So yes, now let's take questions on this. I hope this is clear. But yes, if you have any questions on this, let me know. Again, we have 4 properties: content, which are all the text and font styles that we have seen. Then we have padding, which is the space between the content and the border. Then there is the border, and then the margin is the space outside the element. So the space between different HTML elements, that is called the margin. So padding is within or inside the element, margin is outside the element. That's the difference. And it is separated by the border. So that is the box model. And yes, now I am reading questions in the chat. So if there is anything, please let me know. Yes, so again, Mohammed, you can do whatever you want with HTML. You can add as many sections as you want, as many backgrounds as you want, as many images as you want. We'll explore these things one by one in the next couple of sessions. So I think in the next session, we have 2 output questions, challenges, where we'll create 2 outputs. which will give us a very good idea of how to arrange everything on the screen. So yes, border and border bottom are two different styles. So border is all four sides. Border bottom is only the bottom border. Similarly, you have border left, border right, border top, everything, right? And can we make bottom or top line separate with two colors? Again, so yes, you can, but John, that requires special code. So we'll not get into that advanced code just yet. But yes, you can have the same line in different shades. All of that is possible. But again, I will not discuss that. That is outside the scope of our discussion. But yes, there is something called gradient, which is available. You can use gradient to create a color gradient. You can explore this on your own. Just look for linear gradient. You can check W3 schools and you will be able to find it. So we'll not cover gradients. That is outside the scope of our discussion. No, so the value, Shweta, that is not custom value. I think Chandrasekhar mentioned as a reply. The values that I had given were custom. But if you don't give any value, then there are default values. I think there is 18 as the default value for H1 borders, sorry, H1 margins. So similarly, H3 has a different value, P has a different value. There are a couple of default values. But again, whatever we give in CSS are custom values. Yes. So margin. So the question is explain the difference between margin and border. So margin is the space outside the element and border is the boundary of the element, right? So that is the difference. Yes. So again, Arvind, like I said, every HTML tag, no matter which tag it is, table, form, TD, LI, image, audio, everything will follow the box model. That is how CSS treats every HTML element. It treats the element like a box. So yes, you can apply the box model to headings, paragraphs. We applied it to a heading itself, right? Just now we applied it to H3. So we can use it on any HTML tag. Yes, so all of the CSS properties that we're discussing, everything can be done in all external CSS also, internal CSS also, and inline CSS also. Yes, Sunil will talk about CSS3 features in the next session. That session is entirely dedicated to CSS3. So that's coming up in the next one. Here is the entire code. If you want to see the code, here it is. That is the code. And yes, so to open the box model in Chrome, you have to right click on inspect. So again, right click on inspect, then choose an element using this arrow. So you can see the arrow over here on the top right. If you see over here where my cursor is, this is the arrow. Then choose the element that you want to check and then scroll all the way down and the bottom right, and you will see the box model over here. So this is how you can access the box model in Chrome. So Rupan, nothing is mandatory, right? The styling is on you. If you want to style it, you can. If you don't want something, don't style it. Right? So that depends on what you are trying to build. Flexbox, again, Divya is coming up in the next session. So that is something that helps us arrange things on the same line. Again, we'll talk about that in the next one. There are no questions on YouTube as well. Perfect. So this is the second topic that we've discussed today, which is the box model. This is how that works. Now, quickly move into the next topic. So this is again super interesting. Please pay very close attention for 5 minutes and I will be able to explain this to you really quickly. So CSS has a concept of position, and this position, as you can see on the screen, will vary. There are 5 different options that we have for positioning something on the screen. Let me quickly show them to you one by one, and then we'll come back to this figure and take another look at this after we have written the code, right? So let's jump back to the code and let me make some space over here. Perfect. I'm going to comment out everything that we have styled so far. We don't need this. And we'll try to position the paragraph on the screen. So the paragraph is, right. So the paragraph ID that we had given is hash content, and that is what we want to position on the screen now. Let's double check with HTML if that is in fact the ID. It's description, not content. So let's modify that, right? Now we'll discuss how to position this on the screen, right? So let's check that out. The first position value, which is the default position value, is called static position. So if you don't specify anything, then it is static by default, right? So this current position of the paragraph, which is after H3, this is static. Static position means wherever the HTML is in the HTML, wherever the element is in the HTML document, that is the static position. So if this paragraph was above H3, then it will obviously show up above H3, right? So wherever the element is placed in the HTML document, that is its static position, right? So that's the first value of position that we have, static. The second value that we have is position relative. So the next position value that is available is called relative. And the name says relative position basically moves the element around from the place where it is supposed to be. So relative to its static position. For example, if I just say position relative, there will be no change in the output, as you can see, right? So relative position will move the element from its original static position. Now, let us say that I specified top 100 pixels. As soon as I save this, you will immediately see the element now moves 100 pixels from where it was supposed to be. So the element is supposed to be here, right, under this H1. It is moving 100 pixels down, right? So 100 pixels from the top is what we have specified. When we say top 100 pixels, it means move the element 100 pixels from the top based on its static value, right? So that is the first one. Now, if I add one more line, let's say left, and I add 100 pixels again. So now the element will move 100 pixels to the left from where it was supposed to be. So originally the element was supposed to be here. We have moved it 100 pixels down. And now we are saying from the left also move 100 pixels. So it will push it to the right by 100 pixels. So effectively, it was supposed to be here, but now it is diagonally 100 pixels in that direction, right? So this is how we can move the element around with the relative position. Again, the relative position is where the element moves with respect to where it was initially supposed to be. So relative to its original position. This is the original position of the image. So that is why once we set it to relative, without specifying any other values, nothing will happen. It will never change its position. But if we specify top, then it moves 100 pixels from the top from where it is supposed to be, right? So for example, if I now change the element's position and put H3 above it, then the element will still move 100 pixels, but from here. So let me mark the current spot of the element, right? This is the current spot of the element. I have just marked that. Now, if we specify top 100 pixels, what will happen is the element will move 100 pixels from the top. So as soon as I save this, you will see the element moves 100 pixels from the top. So this is 100 pixels from the top, right? Similarly, if we put left 50 pixels, then the element will move left from its current position, right? So again, if I comment this out and uncomment this, let's say left 50, then you can see it moves left from where it is originally supposed to be, from its static or default position. It moves 50 pixels from the left. This is relative positioning. Again, the element will move relative to its static position or relative to where it was supposed to be originally. This is the second position, and we can combine them. So if you specify both top and left, then it will move from top also and from left also. So 100 pixels from the top, 50 pixels from the left, right? So this is the second position that is available for the second value that the position property can take, right? Perfect. Now let's move to the third value. So again, I will comment this out. Again, static is the default position of the element. Relative is the position of the element that is from its expected position. The third value is absolute, right? So absolute, like the name says, is exactly where you will specify. So if I save this now, you will see it just moves away. It is now lying randomly on the page. And then absolute would mean you can specify wherever it should be. It will do that from the body, from the top of the page, or from the left of the page. So in the case of absolute, it will not move with respect to its current position, but instead with respect to the page itself, right? So if I say 250 pixels from the top, then it would not move 250 from here, which was its current position, but 250 from the top of the page. Similarly, it will not move 50 from its current position, but 50 from the left of the page. So that is the difference between static and absolute. Static position, sorry, that is the difference between relative and absolute. Relative position moves the element from where it is originally supposed to be. Absolute position moves the element with respect to the entire page. So top 250 in the case of absolute would mean move it 250 pixels from the top. Right? If we take the exact same value in the case of relative, then it will be a different output. So it will be further down the page. It will be 250 pixels from this point. So if I just check this, right, let me just run this. You will see, like I said, it will be further down the page. So in the case of relative, it is 250 pixels from its expected position. In the case of absolute, it is 250 pixels from the top of the page. Right? That's the difference. Again, we have top, left, bottom, right. We can specify whatever value you want and it will work accordingly, right? So that is the absolute position, and that's the difference between relative and absolute. Relative will move it with respect to its current position or expected position, and absolute will move it with respect to the entire page. Is this making sense so far? Okay, we have discussed three different values so far: static, relative, and absolute. I know this can be a little confusing, but this is, this is a very important topic, obviously. So that is that. Then finally, we have the next value, which is fixed position. So let's set that. We can set position to fixed, right? Now, fixed would mean that the position of the element will be fixed and it will scroll with the page, right? It will scroll away with the page. So, for example, if I just go ahead back to the HTML and let me just add a couple more paragraphs here, right? And what we'll do is we'll custom style our paragraph so that we know what we're talking about. So I've just added a bunch of them to create this scroll effect, right? I just wanted to create the scroll for this. And now let us add a style. Let's give a background color to our paragraph so it becomes visible to us. Let's make it pink. So our paragraph is lying here at the end of the page because we have set the position to fixed. Now, what we have to do is we also have to set top 50 pixels wherever we want it to be. Let's say 100 pixels from the top. So now you will see that the element will be fixed at that position and it will scroll away with the page. As you can see, right, the element is at 100 pixels from the top and it scrolls away with the page. It is fixed there. So generally, when you see offer banners, promo, stuff like that, that is done with fixed position. Again, you can change it to 50 from the top and let's say 50 pixels from the left. So this element will now be fixed over here and it will scroll away with the page, as you can see. This is fixed. Again, you can change it to 150 and it will be fixed. It will scroll away with the page. That is fixed. Finally, we have something called sticky. And the only difference between that is it will stick to the page even when we scroll. Right? So that's the fifth position. We'll discuss that later. So these are the four different position values, right? Again, if I go back, we have static, that is the default position of the element. Then we have relative position, that is basically it will move with respect to its current position, as you can see here, right? With respect to its current position, it will move away. Absolute would mean it will basically be fixed with respect to the entire browser or with respect to the web page itself. And then fixed would mean it will go away with the scroll. It is fixed at that point. Whenever you're scrolling, it will become visible and it will go away with the scroll. These are the four values that we have seen right now. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. And that is pretty much what I wanted to discuss in today's session. So this is the positioning, the box model and positioning. Those are the two most important concepts that we have covered today. So again, we have talked about three things: fonts, font styles. So some custom font styles, adding fonts from the internet, stuff like that. Number two, we have talked about the box model. And number three, we have talked about position. Again, we'll recap position in the next session and then we'll move to flex and grid. That is what is coming up in the next one, right? So yes, that is it for this particular session. We'll continue with this in the next one. Now, before I take more questions, I have a couple of questions as always. So let us take those in first and then I will go back to the questions in the chat. So again, here is the first question. You can put your answers in the chat. We'll discuss the correct answer and then move to the second question. Right. So the correct answer to this one is option three. Right. So when we set a custom width to anything, the height is automatically adjusted. So option three is the correct answer. Perfect. Here is the second question. So again, read this very carefully, think about it, and then answer. Right. So for this one, the correct answer is actually sticky. We did not discuss that in a lot of detail, but we'll do that in the next one. So typically when we use chatbots and other things, which are always there on the page, even when you scroll down, they're always available on the bottom right. So that is the sticky position. It basically makes an element stick to the page. So even when we scroll down, it is still visible throughout. Right. Perfect. Here is the third one. Again, we haven't discussed this yet, so we'll take this up in the next one. Perfect. So I think that is more or less it for this particular session. And let me just go back to the first slide. And yes, so again, here is the repository again for people who want recordings, who want access to the code, who want PPTs. This is the link. Please go ahead and find it over there. Right. In the next session, we are going to discuss two very important concepts, flex and grid. Those two concepts allow us to structure the content in whatever way we want. Right. So we'll take a look at that. It's very, very important. And we'll also talk about the concept of responsive design. So how can we move things around on the page? Or how can we structure them so that they look good on phones, tablets, as well as laptops. So we'll work on this part in the next session, right? So that is what we'll discuss next. Again, one final time for today. For people who are wondering about the assignment is now available on TapTap. Please go there, log into your accounts. You will be able to find the assignments over there. You have been given emails also. Emails have also been sent with direct links to the assignment. Please check your email, click on the assignment email, and you will be able to find the assignment on TapTap, right? So that is it in terms of assignment. TapTap is the only place where you can access the assignment because that is also where you have to submit. If you're seeing any other questions, please don't answer them. The only questions you have to answer are HTML questions, right? So again, please go ahead and check that out on TapTap and you can start working on that. If there are any further clarifications, then I will let you know in the next session, right? So the next session will now be on Wednesday at 6, right? So Wednesday at 6, the assignment is you will get about, there will be a deadline mentioned on the LMS. You can check that itself. So there'll be a deadline. If not, it will be a maximum of 2 weeks, a maximum of 2 weeks, right? Perfect. If you have not received any mails, please reach out to your point of contacts and they will help you out. You have people from the team who are in touch with you. Please reach out to them and they will be able to guide you further, right? Perfect. So again, so far we have talked about HTML. We have covered a bunch of CSS. And in the last session again, in the next session again, we are going to spend on CSS. That will wrap up CSS for us. So HTML is already done. CSS will be wrapped up in the next one. And then from the from the eighth session onwards, we move to JavaScript, right? So yes, that is it for this one. Thank you so much for attending. I hope this makes sense and I will see you in the next one. So again, Wednesday, 6 o'clock. Until then, have a great day. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.